Welcome back, everyone. Before we dive in, be sure to drop your thoughts, feelings, and lessons in the comments below. Like the video and subscribe so you never miss stories like this. Let's get into it. Cruel thing she did. My wife, Jasmine, threw my duffel bag onto the floor, told me I was not allowed to stay in our home anymore, and changed the alarm code the next morning so I couldn't even step inside to grab my own clothes. Here's how it happened. The version of my life that looked good from the outside started with a quiet routine in the suburbs outside Charlotte, North Carolina. Every weekday morning, I woke up before sunrise to the soft thrum of the espresso machine, the faint click of our neighbor's sprinkler system, and Jasmine humming as she scrolled on her phone like the world owed her calm. I would kiss her shoulder, warm and familiar, and she would lean into me like she loved me. For a long time, that little lean kept me believing I was safe. Jasmine and I met at a charity gala in Atlanta years ago, back when I still thought money was mostly about hard work and timing. She was in a sleek black dress, poised and bright, and she talked to me like I belonged in the room. I was working in corporate finance then. Good job, clean record, careful life. She told me she liked how steady I seemed. Later that night in the hotel, she held my face and said she felt calm with me, like I was home. Her father, Preston Baylor, didn't feel that way. The first time I shook his hand in Charlotte, his grip was firm, but his eyes were dismissive, like he was checking a label. He asked what I did, and then nodded with the bored patience of a man humoring a child. Finance, I said. He smiled without warmth. Middle management finance or real finance? He said it like a joke, but it landed like a warning. Jasmine squeezed my arm under the table, as if to say, ignore him. In the early years, Jasmine and I built a marriage that felt simple. We made dinner playlists. We argued about paint colors. We had lazy Sundays with pancakes and movies, her legs across my lap, her hair smelling like coconut oil. We made love in soft lighting, slow and affectionate, the kind that made me think I was chosen. Jasmine would whisper, "You make me feel taken care of." I took that seriously. I didn't know then that she meant something sharper than love. Preston's company, Baylor Capital Holdings, was a family obsession. It wasn't just a business. It was their name, their social currency, their proof. Their family gatherings circled around stock performance and new contracts the way other families circled around sports. If the company had a good quarter, the room felt brighter. If it had a bad month, everyone became tense and mean, like the air was waiting for someone to blame. The first time I noticed the cruelty in Jasmine wasn't even aimed at me. It was aimed at a waitress in an upscale restaurant in South Park. The woman got Jasmine's drink order slightly wrong, and Jasmine smiled the whole time she corrected her gentle voice, sharp eyes. I said club soda with lime, she repeated, as if the mistake was a character flaw. After the waitress left, Jasmine laughed softly and said, "People need to learn to listen." It was casual, almost playful. Something in me tightened anyway. I kept my personal finances private from the beginning. Not secretive in a dishonest way, private in a survival way. My mother raised me on the kind of caution you learn when you've watched people get used up. She used to say, "Love is sweet, but paperwork is real." I had my own accounts, my own plan, and a long-term investment strategy one never talked about because I didn't need applause. I needed security. Years before Jasmine, I had taken a risk that changed everything. A mentor in New York introduced me to an opportunity to buy into a package of undervalued shares through a holding structure. It was legal, discreet, and designed for investors who wanted privacy. I didn't buy it to impress anyone. I bought it because I believed in the fundamentals and because I understood how generational wealth was built quietly, patiently, without begging for permission. Over time, those holdings became enormous. So enormous, I kept my life simple on purpose. By the time Jasmine and I married, my stake, through layers of entities and managed voting rights, had become worth more than I could explain without turning the conversation into a spectacle. And I never wanted that. I didn't want the world treating me differently. I didn't want my own wife looking at me like a number. So I let my lifestyle stay normal. A nice home, not a flashy one. A good car, not a loud one. Quiet choices. For a while, that worked. Jasmine enjoyed the aesthetic of stability. She liked telling people we were comfortable. But as she climbed deeper into her father's world, her definition of comfortable started changing. She began sending me listings of homes with indoor pools. She started talking about the right circles. She criticized my watch, my shoes, the way I spoke to people she considered beneath us. She began to treat modesty like a disease. The turning point came the year Baylor Capital's performance dipped. It wasn't a collapse, not publicly, just a wobble. A few contracts got delayed. A few analysts asked questions. And suddenly Preston was raging at family dinners, slamming his glass down, calling people incompetent. Jasmine started coming home from her parents' place with a different energy, shoulders high, eyes cold. She would stand in our kitchen and say things like, "My dad says men have to be established before they take a woman's time." At first I laughed because it sounded ridiculous. Then I stopped laughing because Jasmine didn't. She stared at me like she was measuring me. "Why don't you want more?" she asked. "Why are you satisfied with this?" She gestured at our home like it was a temporary shelter. I told her I wanted peace. I told her I was building long-term. She rolled her eyes and said, "You always talk like that. Long-term. Long-term. What does that even mean?" I tried to bring her back to us. I planned a weekend in Charleston, South Carolina. Not too far, romantic quiet. We walked by the water. We ate shrimp and grits. We danced in our hotel room to an old R&B playlist, her arms around my neck, her smile returning like the woman I married. That night, she kissed me slowly and said, "I miss us." I believed her. I wanted to believe her. In the morning, she took a call from Preston and her whole face changed again. The humiliation started small and got worse. Jasmine would invite friends over, women from her social circle, all polished and loud, and they would sit on our couch like judges. Someone would mention a vacation home in Aspen or a new luxury SUV, and Jasmine would glance at me with a faint smile, as if the point was to remind me what I wasn't giving her. One of her friends, Kendra, laughed and said, "So what does your husband do again?" Jasmine answered with a shrug, "He works." The way she said it made my chest burn. I confronted her once, late at night, after everyone left. I told her I didn't like the way she talked about me. She didn't apologize. She sighed like I was exhausted. "You are too sensitive," she said. "If you were really secure, you wouldn't care." I stood there in our dim kitchen, the refrigerator humming, and realized she had learned a new way to hurt people. Insult them and then punish them for reacting. The worst part was the affection withholding. Jasmine stopped touching me the way she used to. No casual kisses. No leaning into me. She began sleeping, turned away, phone glowing in her hand like a secret altar. When I reached for her, she would say, "Do not." If I asked why, she'd say, "I need space." Then she would go out with her friends, come home laughing, and ignore me like I was furniture. Then she started using the house as a weapon. "This is my home," she said during one argument, her voice calm, eyes sharp. "My family helped us get here." That wasn't true. We bought the house together. My income qualified us. My credit carried us. But Jasmine said it like the trut, because she knew Preston's influence made people bow. "If you can't be a man, at least don't be in my way," she added. I felt my throat tighten so hard it hurt. I tried to talk to Preston directly once, thinking maybe I could at least earn basic respect. I met him at his office in Uptown Charlotte, a glass building with security guards and quiet intimidation. He didn't offer me a seat. He told me Jasmine deserved a lifestyle. He said, "A woman like my daughter should not be waiting for potential." I told him Jasmine and I were married, not negotiating a contract. He smiled and said, "Marriage is a contract, whether you admit it or not." I left that office shaking with anger, but also something worse, clarity. Preston didn't see me as family. He saw me as a placeholder. And Jasmine, my wife, was letting him. She was carrying his contempt into our home like it was a family heirloom. The night Jasmine forced me out didn't start dramatically. It started with a simple question. She asked if I could wire money to cover a shortfall on a private bill. I asked what bill. She said it wasn't my business. I told her calmly it was my business if she wanted me to pay. Her eyes narrowed. "You always ask questions," she said. "That's why you'll never be rich." I tried to de-escalate. I told her we could sit down and look at our budget. I told her I wanted a partnership. Jasmine laughed, A short, sharp laugh that made my stomach drop. Partnership, she repeated. I married you because I thought you had direction. But you're just small. The word hit harder than any curse. Small. Like I was nothing. Then she crossed the line that turned my blood cold. My dad was right about you, she said. You are not the kind of man who can keep up. I told her not to bring her father into our marriage. Jasmine walked to the closet, pulled out a duffel bag, and started throwing my clothes into it with quick, angry movements. You are not staying here tonight, she said, voice steady, like she had rehearsed it. I stood there stunned, trying to understand how a marriage became an eviction. Jasmine, stop, I said. She didn't stop. She tossed the bag at my feet. Go, she said. I need peace. And you are not at peace. Then she walked to the door and opened it like she was dealing with a delivery driver. You can come back when you figure out how to be a man, she added. Not one tear. Not one tremble. I begged, quietly, not on my knees, but with my voice. I told her I had nowhere to go. I told her it was late. I told her this was our home. Jasmine stared at me like she was bored. You will not manipulate me with pity, she said. Leave. When I hesitated, she stepped closer and whispered, If you do not leave, I will call my father and he will handle it. Something in me broke then, not into rage, but into a kind of numb understanding. I grabbed the duffel bag and walked out. The air outside was cold enough to sting my cheeks. I stood on the porch for a moment, listening to the door lock behind me. That sound, the final click, felt like a funeral. The next morning, when I returned to get more belongings, the keypad beeped red. Code changed. I called Jasmine. She didn't answer. I texted her. Nothing. I sat in my car across the street and watched our curtains flutter like the house was breathing without me. Later, I got a message from Jasmine's cousin. Stop harassing her. You are embarrassing. That's how quickly I became the problem. I slept in my car the first night. My back hurts. My neck is cramped. I stare at the ceiling and try not to cry because crying felt like confirming what they believed, that I was weak. The second night, my friend Malik let me crash on his couch in Raleigh. He didn't ask for details at first. He just handed me a blanket and said, You are safe here. I almost broke from the kindness alone. In the days that followed, Jasmine and her family began rewriting me. They told people I was lazy. They implied I was financially irresponsible. They acted like Jasmine was escaping a burden. Her mother called me once, not to check on me, not to ask where I was sleeping, but to say a real man would not let things get this bad. I asked what things meant. She said, Jasmine's disappointment. That was the center of their universe. Her feelings, her image, her entitlement. Jasmine finally answered my call a week later. Her tone was irritating. What do you want? She asked. I told her I needed access to my things. She said she would leave a box on the porch when she had time. I told her that was not acceptable. Jasmine laughed softly. You are not in control anymore, she said. You should have thought about that before you made me feel unsupported. I said her name like a plea. Jasmine's response was ice. Do not call me like we are still close, she said. We are not. Then she added, almost casually, also, my dad says you should sign the separation paperwork quickly, so we can be done. I felt my stomach drop. Paperwork already drafted. Plans already made. They had been preparing to remove me while I was still trying to fix us. I spent most of that month moving like a ghost. I still went to work. I still answered emails. I still pretended I wasn't shattered. But inside, I was replaying memories like they were crime scene footage. Jasmine leaning into me, Jasmine whispering love, Jasmine laughing with my head on her lap. It felt like I had married a person who died and been replaced by someone who wore her face. Malik pushed me to eat. He pushed me to sleep. He pushed me to stop blaming myself. You did not deserve this, he said. I wanted to argue because my mind kept hunting for the moment where I caused it, the moment where I failed. But every time I tried to pinpoint it, I kept returning to the same ugly truth. Jasmine wanted a certain life, and she was willing to crush me to get it. A few weeks after I got pushed out, Jasmine posted a photo online from a rooftop restaurant in Charlotte, dressed in white, smiling like she had been freed. No caption about heartbreak. No hint of loss. Just a clean image designed to communicate one message. She was fine, and I was irrelevant. People commented on their hearts. Her friends wrote, You deserve happiness. That night, I sat in Malik's guest room and cried until my throat felt raw. I contacted a divorce attorney in Charlotte named Adrienne Cole. She was black, sharp, calm, and direct in a way that didn't feel cruel. Her office smelled like lemon polish and paper. She listened while I explained, voice low, hands clenched. When I told her Jasmine locked me out, Adrienne's eyes narrowed slightly. That matters, she said. Not emotionally, legally. And we're going to document everything. Adrienne didn't ask me why I wasn't fighting harder to win the house. She asked what I wanted. I surprised myself with my answer. Peace. Adrienne nodded, like she understood the difference between revenge and freedom. Then we move smart, she said. Quiet. Precise. No drama. The word quiet felt like a shelter. I told Adrienne there was something important I hadn't mentioned. My holdings. Her eyebrows lifted, but she didn't react like she'd hit a jackpot. She simply asked, "Is it marital property?" I told her no. Structured long before the marriage. Documented. Separate. Adrienne leaned back slowly. Then we protect it, she said, and we do not broadcast it. Jasmine, meanwhile, kept escalating. She sent messages through her lawyer implying she wanted spousal support because I had failed to provide the expected lifestyle. She claimed she had been financially burdened in the marriage. The audacity nearly made me laugh, but nothing about it was funny. It was a calculated attempt to punish me and extract value from me, even after she threw me out. The first mediation meeting was in a quiet office building in Charlotte. Jasmine arrived in a tailored outfit, hair perfect, expression flat. No sadness, no softness, just performance. When she saw me, she didn't look relieved or hurt. She looked annoyed that I existed. Her lawyer spoke like I was a problem to be managed. Jasmine sat there, legs crossed, and said, "I want a clean break, but I want what is fair." Adrienne asked, calmly, "Define fair." Jasmine smirked. "I carried this marriage," she said, "and I'm not leaving empty-handed." There was no remorse in her voice, no reflection. She spoke like I had been an investment that didn't pay out, and now she wanted a refund. After mediation, Jasmine cornered me briefly in the hallway, away from the lawyers. Her voice dropped low. "You could have prevented this," she said. I stared at her, stunned by how effortless her blame was. She leaned closer. "If you actually loved me, you would have leveled up," she whispered. "Instead, you embarrassed me." Then she walked away as if she had delivered a reasonable statement. That night, I couldn't sleep. Malik was already asleep, and I lay in the dark staring at the ceiling, trying to understand how someone could be so certain in their cruelty. I realized Jasmine wasn't confused. She wasn't conflicted. She wasn't acting out of pain. She simply believed she was entitled to more, and I was in the way. That kind of belief doesn't soften with time. Around that same time, I got a message from an acquaintance who worked near Preston. Baylor Capital was tense inside. There were whispers about internal scrutiny, about someone pushing governance questions. The timing made my pulse quicken. Not because I was eager to strike, because I understood leverage. When you own what I own, you don't need to threaten. You need to stop being silent. I made one call to the firm that handled voting rights tied to my holdings. I didn't brag. I didn't announce myself. I requested a standard governance action, a confidential internal audit trigger related to compliance practices and related party contracts. Nothing illegal about requesting it. Nothing theatrical. Just the kind of action that forces accountability into rooms that survive on immunity. That call was the beginning of karma, but karma didn't arrive like lightning. It arrived like paperwork, slowly, quietly, inevitably. The compliance division at Baylor Capital began asking Preston uncomfortable questions. Contracts that had always been rubber-stamped started getting reviewed. Family favor vendors started getting audited. Expenses that had been shrugged off became items of concern. Preston raged, according to the whispers. He demanded to know who was challenging him. Nobody told him. Jasmine didn't know any of that at first. She was too busy trying to crush me. She kept telling her family I was broke. She told her friends she was starting over. She didn't start over with humility. She started over with arrogance, acting like she had upgraded simply by removing me. In the middle of all that ugliness, I remembered our early love, the way Jasmine used to rub my scalp when I had a headache, the way she used to pull me toward her like she missed me. I hated myself for missing those moments because they felt like traps now. But grief does not ask permission. It just shows up. I missed the person I thought she was, and that loss felt like a physical ache in my ribs. Adrian warned me that people like Jasmine often escalate when they sense they're losing control. She will try to provoke you, Adrian said. She will try to bait you into anger so she can paint you as unstable. She told me to communicate only through counsel. She told me to document everything. I obeyed because my pride wasn't worth my future. Jasmine's escalation came as a new cruelty. She started threatening to dispose of my remaining belongings. Pick them up by Friday, she messaged, or they're going in the trash. I asked Adrian to handle it. Adrian sent a formal notice. Jasmine responded with mockery through her lawyer. And on Friday, when I arrived with a police escort for civil standby, Jasmine stood on the porch smiling like she was enjoying the scene. She didn't apologize as I carried boxes to my car. She didn't even pretend to be sad. She stared at me like I was a lesson she was teaching herself. Never settle. Preston stood behind her in the doorway, arms folded, watching as if he was witnessing a victory. When I passed him, he said quietly, "This is what happens when you marry above your station." My hand shook so hard I almost dropped a box. I didn't respond. I kept walking. That silence was not a weakness. It was restraint. And restraint, I was learning, is power when you stop using it to protect people who would never protect you. Back in Raleigh, I unpacked my life into Malik's spare room like I was shrinking. My suits hung in a cramped closet. My favorite mug sat on a tiny dresser like a relic from a life that didn't exist anymore. I stared at the wall and realized I had been reduced to a guest in someone else's home because my wife decided I didn't deserve shelter. The humiliation burned, and the anger underneath, it scared me. Malik suggested therapy. Private, no announcements, no social media healing journey. Just a professional office and the ugly truth. I found a black male therapist in Raleigh named Dr. Everett Mason. His office smelled like sandalwood and clean paper. He listened while I spoke in fragments. Anger, disbelief, shame. At one point, I admitted the thought that haunted me most. She wanted me to suffer. Dr. Mason nodded slowly. Some people do, he said. And the hardest part is accepting you can't love them into humanity. Weeks passed. Baylor Capital's internal audit tightened. Preston began losing allies quietly. The kind of people who used to laugh at his jokes started missing his calls. A board member requested more documentation. A compliance officer couldn't sign off without extra review. Preston's power, built on assumed obedience, started cracking. He didn't know the force behind it. He only knew he was being challenged in a way he couldn't intimidate away. Jasmine's attitude remained unchanged. In court documents, she described me as financially unstable. She implied I had misled her. She never once acknowledged forcing me out of the home. In her narrative, she was the victim escaping disappointment. When Adrian showed me one of Jasmine's statements, my stomach turned. Not because it was legally dangerous, because it proved Jasmine would rather lie than reflect. The next mediation was when the twist began to surface. Jasmine arrived again, polished cold. Her lawyer pushed hard for money, claiming Jasmine needed time to adjust. Adrian listened, then calmly slid a sealed document across the table. Proof of separate holdings, structured years before marriage, protected, verified. Jasmine's lawyer opened it and froze. Jasmine leaned forward, eyes narrowing. "What is this?" she asked, voice sharp. Adrian said, "This is proof that your assumptions are incorrect." Jasmine stared at the paper, scanning numbers, entities, valuation summaries. Her face didn't soften into regret. It sharpened into calculation. She looked up at me slowly. "So you were hiding money," she said, like a prosecutor. I kept my voice calm. "I wasn't hiding money," I said. "I was protecting myself." Jasmine scoffed. "From me?" she asked. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't insult her. I just told the truth. From people who only treat me well when they think I can fund their lifestyle. Jasmine's expression flickered. Annoyance, not guilt. "You're dramatic," she said. Jasmine tried to pivot. Suddenly she talked about reconciliation, Not emotionally, strategically. We could fix this, she said, voice smoother. We rushed into divorce. Her eyes searched my face like she was looking for the old man who would fold. I felt something inside me settle into a steady refusal. You locked me out, I said quietly. You changed the code. Jasmine shrugged. You were stressing me, she said, like that justified homelessness. No remorse. None. After that meeting, Jasmine started calling, block numbers, late-night voicemails. Not apologies. Proposals. We can start fresh, she said once, voice sweet like poison. Another voicemail. If you were honest, we wouldn't be here. She couldn't even admit what she did. She just wanted access again. While Jasmine chased access, Preston's collapse sped up. The audit found patterns, related party contracts, questionable reimbursements, governance failures. It wasn't dramatic enough for a headline, but it was serious enough for the board to act. Preston was offered a choice that was really not a choice. Step down quietly or face a public reckoning. He chose quiet. Men like Preston always choose quiet when the alternative is humiliation they can't control. Jasmine found out about Preston's early retirement through family whispers. She called me furious. Did you do something? She demanded. I didn't answer directly. I asked her, why would you think I did? Jasmine's voice cracked. Not with pain, with anger. Because everything is falling apart, she said. And you're just sitting there like you don't care. She still didn't ask if I was okay. She still didn't say sorry. She only cared that her foundation was shaking. Preston losing power didn't just hurt him. It pulled the rug out from under Jasmine's entire identity. Her job, secured through Preston's network, suddenly became unstable. Her friends started responding slower. Invitations stopped. The quiet social protection that came with being Preston Baylor's daughter started fading like a fragrance. And without that protection, Jasmine's cruelty became less entertaining to people who used to laugh with her. Jasmine came at me harder legally, trying to claim my separate holdings were somehow marital. Adrian shut it down with documentation and precedent. Jasmine got angrier. You think you're so smart, she hissed during one hallway moment, eyes bright with resentment. You think you can punish me. I stared at her and realized she had reduced our marriage to a war where she deserved to win by default. Around this time, I moved out of Malik's place into a quiet apartment in Raleigh. It wasn't flashy. Clean lines, soft lighting, a balcony where I could breathe. The first night alone, I sat on the floor with takeout, the silence thick. I expected to feel triumph. Instead, I felt grief. I loved Jasmine. I had wanted a family. I had pictured growing old with her. And now I was starting over because she decided love wasn't profitable enough. Dr. Mason helped me name what happened. Emotional abuse wrapped in luxury language. They told you were small, so you would chase their approval, he said. And when you chased it, they moved the finish line. I thought about Jasmine's shifting demands, the way she withheld affection, the way she used Preston's voice as a weapon. I realized I'd been running on a treadmill built out of contempt. The divorce timeline moved forward. Jasmine refused to be reasonable. She refused to acknowledge wrongdoing. She refused to compromise. In one filing, she described me as controlling because I wanted transparency about finances. Adrian looked at me and said, she's trying to flip reality. I felt sick reading it. It's a special kind of pain to see someone you loved deliberately rewrite you as a villain. Then karma hit Jasmine in a way she couldn't spin. Her credit limits dropped. Her luxury lease was denied for renewal. The condo she tried to rent in South End fell through after a financial review. She called her mother in panic. Her mother, according to a message I later saw referenced in filings, blamed Jasmine for not choosing a stronger man. Even her own family's love was conditional. Jasmine tried to come back to me again, not with regret, but with desperation. She showed up at my apartment building in Raleigh one evening, demanding to talk. I didn't let her in. I stood outside in the cool air, hands in my pockets, heart pounding. Jasmine's eyes were sharp, makeup perfect, voice trembling with fury. You're enjoying this, she said. You're enjoying watching me struggle. I didn't raise my voice. I struggled first, I said quietly. Jasmine rolled her eyes. You always want to be the victim, she snapped. You could have stayed if you weren't so difficult. I stared at her, stunned by the lack of shame. You locked me out, I repeated. Jasmine shrugged again. And, she said, like homelessness was a minor inconvenience. That moment finally severed something in me. Not love, hope. Jasmine left angry, calling me names under her breath. No tears, no apology. She walked away with the same pride she used to walk away from waitresses and friends she considered beneath her. She still believed she was right. The divorce settled privately. No public drama. No announcements. Just signatures and quiet finality. Adrian ensured I walked away with my separate holdings intact and my dignity protected. Jasmine got what the law required. Nothing more. She wanted a story where she won. She didn't get it. She got paperwork. Months later, I heard through the same quiet channels that Preston had been effectively erased from real influence. He still had his suits, his smile, his country club membership, but the inner power was gone. The board moved on. His allies moved on. The people who once feared him no longer had to. That was his punishment. Not prison, not headlines, irrelevance. A man like Preston would rather die than be irrelevant. Jasmine's punishment was more personal. Without Preston's pull, she couldn't maintain her lifestyle. She didn't suddenly become humble. She didn't grow. She just kept blaming. Her friends disappeared. Her family grew colder. She had to downsize. The house she kicked me out of, our home, became a burden she couldn't carry alone. When it finally sold, it wasn't a victory. It was a surrender she couldn't admit. My transformation wasn't loud. It wasn't designed to make anyone jealous. I went to therapy consistently. I rebuilt my routine. I cooked real meals. I slept in peace. I started running in the mornings along a trail near the river, the air crisp, my lungs burning in a way that felt honest. I stopped checking Jasmine's social media. I stopped needing to know what she thought. That was the first real sign of freedom. I also made a private decision about my wealth. I would stop living like I had to prove anything to anyone. I hired a small team to manage my holdings more efficiently, tighten my structures, and diversified further in ways that would protect me for life. No flashy purchases. No celebrity nonsense. Just stability, control, and time. I bought a modest but beautiful home outside Raleigh with a quiet backyard and morning sunlight in the kitchen. It felt like safety. One night, months after the divorce was final, I sat on my back steps with a glass of water and listened to the neighborhood settle into silence. Crickets, distant traffic, a dog barking once and then stopping. I thought about the night Jasmine forced me out, the cold air, the click of the lock. I realized that moment didn't destroy me. It revealed who she was and who I had become, a man who could survive being discarded. Jasmine never apologized. I heard, later, that she still told people I hid money like that was the greatest sin. She never told them she locked me out. She never told them she threatened to call Preston to handle me. She never told them she treated love like a transaction. In her mind, she was still the wronged one. That was her punishment too, living inside a story where she could never be honest enough to heal. The last time Jasmine tried to contact me was through an email that was half insult, half bait. "I hope you're happy," she wrote. "You got what you wanted." I stared at the words for a long time, then closed the laptop without replying. Happiness wasn't something I could explain to her. She would only interpret it as something she deserved more. I didn't win because I owned $10 billion. I won because I stopped begging for a place in a house where I was treated like a disposable guest. I won because I learned that private success is still success, and peace doesn't need an audience. I won because the people who tried to break me never got the satisfaction of watching me crawl. And in the quiet of my new life, no speeches, no public revenge, no dramatic reveal, I finally understood the cleanest kind of karma. Jasmine threw me out thinking I would come back smaller. Instead, I left her exactly where she belonged, standing in the wreckage of her own entitlement, while I built a life she would never be able to touch again. If you made it this far, you understand the real win wasn't revenge, it was freedom. Like this video, subscribe for more true style stories like this, and comment one word for Jasmine, entitled, cruel, or calculated. Then click the next video because the next story starts even colder. The end.